So what are some of the things that you and your wife are doing in order to counter the divorce past?
It's all about communication, and we're very open with our kids about, like, we come from a troubled past. We come from divorced families. And this is the struggle that it can happen when there's a divorce in the family. It can cause struggle. It can cause generational struggles to get back on track. Our kids have seen us argue. They've seen us disagree. They've seen us make up and dance in the kitchen and things like that. So they've seen all of it. When we struggle, man, they see us go to prayer. They see us chat it out and talk it out, and then pulling out the word and going through the Bible and literally saying, hey, this is what God has called us to do. He hasn't called us to be separate. He called us to be together as a married couple and raise our kids.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Strong by Design podcast. My name is Jared, one of the hosts here on the show. And man, we're just always excited to have incredible guests with us. And we're gonna jump into it today. We have Erik Allen here, who has been podcasting since 2017. He has been a part of a couple of shows. One show where he's going and interviewing MMA guys. He has a show now where he's been really talking with high-level entrepreneurs and talking about what it means to be a man, a father, a godly man, and how to implement those things into your life and into your family. And so all kinds of things across the spectrum. Erik, I'm so excited to have you on the show with us today. We're going to hear a little bit about Erik's story, where he came from, what he's passionate about, but also we're going to talk a bit about what it looks like for us to have healthy rhythms and how our healthy rhythms actually sustain us to do the things that God calls us to do, and how without any kind of structure, it feels like chaos. And we recognize that God is not a God of chaos, but a God of structure. And so he's actually designed it to work that way intentionally. And so we'll get into that. But first and foremost, Erik, maybe just tell me a little bit about who you are. I know very little about your story. I know that you had kind of an interesting upbringing. And so, man, love to hear anything that you're willing to share with us.
Yeah, first of all, Jared, thank you so much for having me on the show, man. It's truly an honor to be here, man, and hopefully I can bring some value to your listeners, man. But yeah, my name's Erik Allen. I'm a podcaster, husband, father, speaker, and been podcasting, like you said, since 2017. I grew up in Eastern Washington State. Typical childhood, I thought. We went to Sunday school. I was the kid who would bring the G.I. Joes in my pocket, though, and then go to the bathroom and then just never come back. I would play with the G.I. Joes in the bag. For some reason, they never came to find me, but that's when I grew up going to church, right? And played Little League. My dad would take my best friend Dave and I literally throw us in dumpsters on a Saturday morning and say, go find treasure. And that was just a fun, adventurous thing that we did as a kid. And then when I was 11 years old, my parents got divorced. And I don't know why, but my mom got together with a man who was physically, emotionally, and verbally abusive almost immediately.
Wow.
And she decided to stay with that guy. I mean, there would be times where I'd be in the backyard playing and I would hear them start arguing. I'd run to their bedroom window, I'd look through, and I would see him hitting her in the head with a cordless phone when those are around. And I would call the police, they would show up, and my mom would never press charges. It was this rinse and repeat cycle over and over. And I never understood why she decided to choose that man over her children. And then she got pregnant, and they decided to move us from Tri-Cities or Kennewick, Washington, to Stevensville, Montana. And it was a population of 1,200 people. And we lived on the outskirts of town, so we were very far away from any sort of police station or anything like that. And they rented a house on 5 acres. It was a beautiful property, 2 big ponds right by the Bitterroot River. The problem, though, was this house had 3 bedrooms. And it was one for them, one for my little brother, who's a few months younger than me, who was just a few months older at that time, and then one for my younger sister, who's 4 years younger than me. And they said, Erik, you get to live in the garage. And so I literally had this plastic tarp down the middle of the garage that separated my bed from the truck that would pull in. Luckily, my half of the garage had a fireplace, though, that would keep me semi-warm in the middle of the negative degree winter nights of Montana.
Yeah.
But there was a moment when I was about 13, 14 years old, living in that house, that changed the trajectory of my life forever. They came home arguing one night. Wasn't anything different than any other night. But I remember as I was brushing my teeth, and I wasn't walking with God at this moment, or we weren't going to church, but I just remember brushing my teeth, and I just felt God saying, dude, you've got to turn around to see what's going on. And so if I put my head out in the hallway and I looked down the hall, it was to the kitchen, to the pantry, to the garage door where my bedroom was at. And in that pantry area, this man is on top. My mom just boom, boom,
Oh, man.
boom. And I just had this like 20 seconds of courage and walked up behind him, and I grabbed a cast iron pan and I swung as hard as I could, and I split the back of his head open.
Oh, wow.
And he turned around. As he turned around, I smacked him again in the forehead, and I split his forehead open. Still didn't knock him out. I had fallen over on that second swing, and I remember him standing up over me. He was bleeding. My mom jumps up, lands like 5-6 punches in a row. There's blood splatting the wall. I mean, this crazy movie scene. Police finally show up, take him to jail. My mom doesn't press charges. Rinse and repeat, right? And I actually thought I was the hero in that moment. Turns out that would not be the case. If we flash forward a little bit, with 3 months left of my freshman year of high school, I would get kicked out of that house. I had to go stay with my buddy Forrest and his dad to finish out freshman year. And I went back to live with my dad back in Kennewick, Washington for my sophomore through senior year of high school. And he rented a house for him and I. He got me a bus pass so I could get to school. I could get around town. He'd put Hunger Man meals in the freezer and cereal milk in the house. And he put $20 in the cup, and that was my lunch money for the week. And then he would go stay with his girlfriend. So I would see my dad maybe 2 to 3 times a month in passing. And that left me to do whatever the heck I wanted. So I was getting stoned before school, after school, during lunch. And me and my group of buddies, we were what you would call the stoners. And, you know, we were taking acid and mushrooms and opium and hash, whatever we could get our hands on. And then when I was 18 years old, I got arrested for having a bong, which is really funny because in Washington now it's legal, but in 1998 when I was a senior, it was not. And I had to go stay in a small jail in Dayton, Washington. And this is an old school jail, black and white chain gang outfit on, bright orange slippers. And, you know, they'd bring the food out where you could see it, you could smell it, you could see that it was hot. And then when it got cold, they'd slide it into your cell for you. It was kind of an interesting thing. But I was allowed to bring one thing into that jail with me. And it was a Bible. And I brought the Bible, one, because I thought that God would forgive me. And 2, I thought God would protect me. And he did both of those things, which I'm so thankful for. But I didn't learn my lesson. I got out, I went right back to doing the same old thing. And then 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I woke up to a Post-it note on the bathroom mirror that said, you can't comply with house rules. You have 48 hours to get out. So between the age of 18 and 21, I would move 21 times, living off of couches here, couches there, couldn't hold a job. And one of those moves was to Seattle, Washington. And I was racking up credit card debt. And by the time I was 21, I was $28,000 in debt. And I ended up filing bankruptcy. And I was super lost in the world at that point. I ended up, though, landing a job. It was a dream job of mine to work for Universal Records. And I landed a job with Universal Records. I lied to get the job. I was just the intern guy, and then they hired me on. But I was tracking sales, and I was setting up meet and greets. But what that allowed me to do was go to 2 to 3 concerts a week and have an open tab and live a rock star lifestyle without being a rock star, which is not good if I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol, like I was at that time. And my 1-year anniversary came around, and I got laid off because of a thing called Napster back in the day, if people remember that, and just crushed the music industry at the time. And so I started working at Starbucks, and I was a night manager. And I would get off work and I'd go get a 6-pack of beer. I'd go get a DVD at the Hollywood Video there and go to my ghetto apartment in Renton, Washington, across the street from where Jimi Hendrix is buried, and drink myself to sleep every night. It was this rinse and repeat cycle. And there was one night I was working at Starbucks, and a girl walked in and said, hey, we've got a college-age event down at our church. Would you want to go? And man, I was depressed. I had no friends, and she was absolutely gorgeous. Yep, what time do I need to be there, right? Yeah. And I went. And it was in that moment that I felt God realized that God had been protecting me my entire life. Like, I've done a lot of stupid stuff where I should have died. I've had a gun pointed at my head twice. Like, I shouldn't have been alive. But I wasn't ready to give up my worldly lifestyle yet. And it was a month later, it was Easter 2004. I woke up after a night of party in my buddy's basement, and I just felt God going, dude, you're going to die if you don't start making some changes in your life. And so in that moment, I gave my life to Christ right then and there, and I quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes, everything in that moment. And I called that girl up, and I got her voicemail. I said, hey, thanks for inviting me to church. Maybe I'll see you at the store. And 11 months later, we were married, and we just celebrated 19 years of being married.
Crazy.
Man.
Yeah.
And,
congratulations. That's awesome.
And that's what got me back on the path that I'm on today. But yeah, it was a little bit of a crazy journey at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys, how many kids do you have?
We have 2. Yeah.
You have 2 kids. How old are they?
14 and 10.
Okay. Yep. So you're in the thick of it.
Yeah. I mean, when we said I do, we meant it. And being married for 19 years, not every year is rainbows and sunshine, but
Sure.
we wouldn't be
Yep.
married if it wasn't for Jesus. And
Yeah.
we are breaking the chains of divorce, abuse, addiction, and rejection, and our kids will never have to experience the craziness that her and I both experienced as kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So you moving forward now to where you're at, obviously God has done a lot in your life, and he's transformed a lot of things in your life. But now, if you could boil it down to the one thing that you feel like, man, this is what God has really called me to do. This is a main purpose for me. What would that be for you?
I think the main purpose that I've been called to do, and my wife has been called to do together, is be the one that stopped the abuse, to stop the divorce, to stop the addiction that battled our families for generations. We have set out to break those chains and change the future generations of the Allen tribe moving forward, and build
Did your
our
wife
family.
have a similar background?
She came from a broken home as well. Lots of divorces. Both our families have come from, 6 divorces between our parents, right? So it came from the broken home. Things like that. Didn't go through the abuse or addiction or anything like that I did, but it certainly came from a non-stable home. And we just want to change that. We want to build our family on a foundation of Jesus. And our kids, they love the Lord. They love, to love on people. And my wife is an amazing person who we homeschool our kids. And the first hour and a half of the day is just her deep diving into Bible with our kids. And it's so cool to see her do that.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We started homeschooling this year,
Us too.
and my wife, originally we had a curriculum, right? It was a Christian online curriculum, whatever. They were going through it, and for whatever reason, it was a struggle. We have 4 kids, so we're trying to take all 4 kids through, and really, I'm at work, so she's at home trying to do all these things with them, and eventually just felt God say, get rid of the curriculum, just start teaching my word. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
For the next 6 months, let that be your one book, and just dive into it with them, and let's see what happens. So she's like, all right, I don't know how that's going to go over when they ask what we've been doing. But
Sure.
It's really cool to see your kids come alive and to start asking questions and start learning and owning things on their own, right? I think that's a big mistake that we can make as parents, is when we just try to teach our kids information, and we're not really trying to teach them how to study and how to learn and how to engage on their own.
Huge. And the funny thing, I coach baseball, my son's team, and 2 days ago, my son, he said just something that was so profound to me, and I'd never told him this or said anything, but he came up to me and he said, Dad, before we started the game, I just said, Jesus, I'm going to praise you win or lose. And I'm like, man, what a cool thing that he just came up and said that on his own. And man, it's so true. And just a cool thing to see him growing in his faith there.
Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you and your wife are doing in order to counter the divorce past? I'm guessing there's things that maybe you've accidentally fallen into, but I'm sure there's things that you're doing that are very intentional as well.
Totally. I think for me and my wife, it's all about communication, and we're very open with our kids about, we come from a troubled past. We come from divorced families, and this is the struggle that it can happen when there's a divorce in the family. It can cause struggle. It can cause generational struggles to get back on track, and we're very open about that. Our kids have seen us argue. They've seen us disagree. They've seen us make up and dancing in the kitchen and things like that. So they've seen all of it. And not that there's certain, obviously, conversations that we have to have out away from our kids, but there is certain things that they just see us be real. When we struggle, man, they see us go to prayer. They see us chat it out and talk it out. And I'm not that good of a communicator. I'm trying to get better at that. And that's my biggest struggle. My wife is an amazing communicator, and oddly enough, I talk for a living. So it's like, how do I translate that into a marriage? And that's been a struggle for me. But I think the way that we combat that divorce is, 1, being open, and 2, talking about hey, this is what can actually happen. And then pulling out the word and going through the Bible and literally saying, hey, this is what God has called us to do. He hasn't called us to be separate. He called us to be together as a married couple and raise our kids in his word. And I think my wife, she definitely spends more time with them in the word than I do because of work and things like that. But she's doing an amazing job. And you know, as a family, we spend time in prayer. We, you know, before meals, at night, and throughout the day, and things like that. And I think we have to be examples as the parents to example to our kids what our life should be like. When are we praying? Are we always praising God no matter what, win or lose, right? We want our kids to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always say we want to make Jesus normal, right? We don't. It's not an abnormal thing for us to, when we're out and about, to bring, that Jesus is a part of what we're doing. We listened to a good speaker not that long ago as well that just said, "Monkey see, monkey do." That's
totally
the easiest form of discipleship, right? And the reality that we see our kids do things, even the dumb things that we do, that all of a sudden our kids are doing it, and you go, "Oh no, they're picking up that habit,"
totally.
And it's a check on you, and it's also, hey, I know that you've seen me do this, but this actually isn't a good thing, and I need to be working on it, and let's try to correct that now, nip some of those things in the bud. Early on.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I love it. Why? I know you guys are living in Idaho.
Yeah.
With all of the different places that you've lived, is there any particular reason that you settled where you settled?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we came from the Seattle area, and we just started researching like good places to raise kids. That was literally our only, search at first. And I had been to Coeur d'Alene area before, and my wife had never been. And so, but we weren't looking at Coeur d'Alene. We were originally looking down in Boise area, which is about 8 hours south of where I'm at. Idaho's super long. And we went out and we tested the area. And I went to a bunch of interviews while we were there, and none of them turned out. And then literally I was on a plane getting ready to leave. We got kicked off the plane because we were just flying standby. And they ended up booting us off this. So we had like 6 hours in the airport. And while I was there, after we had gotten kicked off, I got a call from a company that said, "Hey, can you come down for an interview?" I was like, "Dude, I'm in jeans and a t-shirt at the airport. If you're okay with that, I will come down." And God just opened that door that allowed us to be able to move. And we just felt God was calling us away from Washington, where we were around toxic people. And we were down in Nampa, Boise area for about 2 years. And then I landed a job that allowed me to work from home. And we just felt like where we moved, it was very secluded. There wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of water, which you love being outside and things like that. And so we had friends move up to Coeur d'Alene where I'm at, and they were like, "Dude, this is beautiful up here." I'm like, "Man, we moved to the ugly part of Idaho." So we came up here in 2016, and God just opened the door for us to get into the house and connect us with certain people that are still our friends today. And we just kind of felt like the Holy Spirit was leading us in that. And, we've made mistakes along the way, but I think it's all learning. And, I think finding those other Christian families that we can talk with and have real talk with, that's what has made the experience awesome.
Yeah. So as you've been growing and developing, you're developing. You've been doing a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. Do you have your own business at this point?
Yeah, so for me, I've always worked a W-2 job. I've always been an employee, but I've always done the side hustle stuff. So my podcast, I do, generate some money from the sponsorships and coaching people on how to start, launch, and run podcasts. I do that. And then I work with brands on content creation. So a lot of brands will send me their products. I'll do a 30-second, 1-minute commercial, send them back the video. So I've worked with brands like Grunt Style to Alpha Outpost to Blackout Coffee to, tons of brands on there. And that's, I would say, my biggest generation of income is working with brands on those little side hustles there. And we do have an LLC, but we just run it as my Erik Allen Media is the company that I run. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's great. So you're doing all of this stuff. You're trying to break the chains of generational sin. You're trying to shift the course of all of these things. And all of this, it doesn't just happen by accident. We already kind of mentioned that it's intentional.
Yeah.
What are you doing in order to control the chaos, because it can feel chaotic. I know even for us, as we're going through whatever it is throughout our day. You know, my wife's working part-time, I'm working full-time, we're trying to homeschool, we're trying to keep up with other activities. Our oldest is in youth group now, you know, and so all of this craziness. What are some things that you guys have done in order to help control the chaos that is daily life?
I think for us, we've set boundaries in regards to like who we're hanging out with, when we're hanging out with, people. But also, I think it goes back to being intentional about having this attitude of gratitude. I'm 44, so if I open my eyes, it's a goal of mine to wake up every day. And so I immediately out loud say, man, thank you, Jesus, for another day to see and hug and hold my family. So that's just an attitude of gratitude right from the start. And then for me, I get up early in the morning, typically 4:30 to 5 a.m., and I come up to my office and I turn on some worship music, and that's my most important non-negotiable part of the day. That's where I'm just putting it out at God's feet and saying, God, I want this day to be you. I want your will to be done, and I'm just so thankful and grateful for health and being debt-free and owning vehicles and things like that. But really for us it's setting the boundaries. But then as a family, we don't allow our kids to have cell phones. We don't allow them to have access to YouTube and screens whenever the heck they want. We kind of set that tone. So we say, hey, Friday night we'll watch a movie as a family. Maybe Saturday night we'll watch a movie as a family. But outside of that, we don't watch a lot of TV. We don't have an iPad for them to access except for, listening to some music in front of, while they're doing homework or something like that with my wife and I present. So our computers are out in the living room. They don't have computers or screens in their room. So I think setting that just from the beginning, our kids are used to that, and they've never asked, hey, can I have a cell phone, or hey, can I have a computer in my room or a TV in my room? We just said, hey, that's not what we're doing. As a family, we do that together, but we try to get out, especially during the summer out here. We're by the lake, so we try to hit the lake as much as we can and just spend as much time as we can creating experiences with our kids. And I think that's what helps us just bond together. And I think the more time that we can spend together as a family, and my kids see me go on a date with my wife every once in a while, though it needs to be more for sure with the chaos of baseball season and all of that stuff going on. But we try to, as a family, connect on a daily basis. Like, hey, how can we make, the better? Like, what things do we have coming up that we can do better, right? We don't always get a chance to have those conversations. But like I said, Friday, Saturday nights are really kind of our time as a family to kind of chill and hang out and get to just have family time,
Mm-hmm. Have you been intentional about developing, obviously, personal rhythms for you? We recognize that as we're leading our families, we have to lead ourselves well first.
Yeah.
So developing healthy boundaries and healthy rhythms for you.
Yeah.
But then how is that translated into healthy rhythms as a family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I have to be the example, right? Monkey see, monkey do. So my kids, like I said, I wake up early, but if they wake up early and they come into my office, they'll see me praying. They'll see me in the Word. They'll see me listening to worship music. And if that happens, I just invite them in. I say, man, it's my quiet time. Let's read the Bible together. Hey, let's worship together. Let's pray together. And I tell them from day one, that's a non-negotiable for me. I don't care if we're on vacation, a business trip, or whatnot. We're having that quiet time. I'm having that time of prayer. And I think that sets the tone for the whole day. But as a family, again, spending that time of prayer, spending that time in the Word, and having those open conversations is really what helps us to continue to grow. But for me, those routines of waking up early, being thankful that Jesus is there and that I'm only alive because of Him, and then spending that time of prayer, that's huge. That's what sets the tone.
I'm not a morning guy. I hate getting up early. I've never liked it. And in the last 2 weeks or so, well, we'll say the last month. So it started out with a group of guys from the church that are like, hey, we want to have a Bible study.
Yeah.
We want to get together and just have a guys get together Friday morning. It started out at 7:00. They're like, we don't have enough time. Let's push it to 6:30. I'm like, man, guys, 6:30 is really early. And then this last week, I was invited on a Tuesday and Thursday with another group of guys from church that they're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for an hour.
Nice.
And they're doing it from 5:30 to 6:30. And it's even earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
And so this week, twice I got up at 5, and then this morning I was up at 5:45 to get there by 6:30.
Yeah.
And I just feel like God's like saying, "See, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can get up.
Yeah.
It's possible."
Yeah.
Whether all of those things are going to last as I'm building out, like I have to have a rhythm of rest as well.
Sure.
I need to have enough time for rest. Needs to be built into there, and I don't know. When we're thinking about building rhythms and healthy rhythms and boundaries, and they have to be sustainable, or else you can't stick to it.
Totally.
Right. You can do anything for a few months, but then for it to actually last and stick, it's got to be a healthy rhythm. And so for me, I'm figuring out, okay, I can get up, and I need that extra time in the morning, to get my mind right, to get my heart right. When we look at what Paul's talking about, like daily dying, that's an intentional thing that we have to do every day.
Yeah.
When we get up in the morning, is we got to intentionally say, okay, I am God, or I am not God. God, you are God, and I am not, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to approach my day today. And so, anyway, I just say all that to say, even for those people who might hear what you said about getting up early and immediately go, nope, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It is actually possible. We just have to be intentional, and it has to be our priority, right? Where our priorities are, that's where we're going to find action.
Yep. The early morning hours allow me to have that time with God solo that allows me to grow my relationship with him and without eating into family time, right? And so my one advice is to anyone that's trying to wake up earlier is don't do it like 2 hours. If you're used to waking up at 8, don't wake up at 6, right? Do it in 15-minute increments, right? Dial it down in 15-minute increments. That'll help you. And like I said, typically 4:30 to 5, I'm awake, but for the last 10 years, I woke up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week to really have that morning time. And that means that I was going to bed by 9:30, but but I had to have that solo time with God in order for me to set the tone for the day for not only myself, but for my family.
Yeah. What would you say to the person that says, well, can't you have that time in the evening?
Totally.
Like at 10.
You can most definitely do that. My wife is a night person, and so it's funny that I'm the morning person. I'm 9:30. I'm pretty tired. I'm ready to go to bed. My wife, though, she gets up 7:30ish or whatever, 7 o'clock with the kids to get homeschool going, but she also stays up maybe till 10:30. Sometimes 11. So I think whatever time works best for you, right? If you're a night person and that's what works best for your schedule, then do that. But I would also implement, even if it's a quick prayer, because there doesn't need to be a set time of saying, hey, I need to pray for 20 minutes a day. Like when you wake up, whatever time that is, man, just be thankful that Jesus gave you another day. And I think that can really help set the tone for the whole day. But then if you have a dedicated time to spending time of worship at night, then man, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. My one counter to that would be, well, like at least in our home, it wouldn't be a solo time for me,
right?
Because my wife would still be awake.
Oh, yeah.
And so and that's like we only have a limited time when it's just us without the kids.
Totally. Yep.
And so again, like you said, you have to work it out for you because it's going to be different for everybody. Mm-hmm. But paying attention to those things, like you're figuring out a time. I don't want to neglect my wife.
Right.
Every day with the time that we have. And so I have to find that one-on-one time with God somewhere else.
Yeah.
I need to give it a different space. So
totally.
Thinking through those things, and I know for me, as I've developed healthy rhythms for me and for our family, we really look to how Jesus engaged in life. And we look at Jesus's rhythm of, he was alone with the Father. That's the one-on-one time that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
He spent time in community with his buddies, his friends, the disciples, spending time with them. And then he spent time in ministry, actually serving and loving other people. And that's really the rhythm that we see over and over again, is one-on-one, time with friends, and then time in ministry. So we've covered the one-on-one stuff. What does time for you in community look like with your family or with other friends?
Yeah, for us, we definitely try to, we have some really close friends that are also Christians that we go hang out, and our family is just connected for the last 5 or 6 years now. So it's been cool to see our kids grow up together and see that they love the Lord, and we love to see that their family's doing well and things like that. But it is about reaching out and being part of the community. I think that falls onto me being a coach in Little League. That allows us to connect with a lot of the families of the players. Not all of them know the Lord, but if I can show my love or Jesus' love through me, right, to the players and just encourage them through mistakes and errors and things like that, we start to connect with families of those players, and it allows us to minister to people and pray for people that are going through some stuff that happens to be on my team, their sickness, or they've encountered these things, and we can say, hey, we're just going to be praying for you guys. We don't need to be up in their face and saying, repent, right? But if we can say, hey, we're just going to pray for you guys, man, it just allows us to be part of that community in the Little League, growing in deeper families that we've met through school when our kids were in a private Christian school. Again, now they're homeschooling, but I think it's super important to be part of a community, whether that's a group of friends or a co-op from school or baseball, whatever that is for you. It's important to be a part of other families because you can grow and learn from each other. I think when we start to feel low, if we're hanging around somebody that is full of faith or having a good journey right now with the Lord and in their life, just being in their presence is going to motivate us to start maybe tweaking some things and get better. Maybe we need to draw closer to the Lord than we haven't been, right? But if we're hanging around somebody in the community that we trust and know, and they're having this great relationship with Christ, just being around them is going to motivate us to maybe read our Bible more, spend more time in prayer, right? So it's super important to be part of that community. Yeah.
And then do you guys, when you talk about, again, just kind of approaching it through the lens of family,
sure.
What does that look like to then serve out either your personal calling, or do you guys do things together as a family to, utilize whatever God might be asking your kids to do? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so we've had some pretty deep conversations around how can we as a family encourage others and be part of just helping people out and loving on people. And my wife and I, when we were first married, we didn't have kids for the first 5 years. It was just her and I getting to know each other. And in those first 5 years that we were married, we went down to Mexico and we built homes twice. And for us, that was life-changing. We were almost at the point where we're like, all right, God, are you calling us to do this? Let's just sell everything and go do this full time. And the funny thing is, I don't know how to handle tools. I grew up with my dad who just said, pay people to do things. My wife was raised by her grandfather who was a shop teacher for 30 years and knows how to work every tool. And so all the tools in the house, even to this day, are all hers, and I'm more the techie, nerdy guy. And so, but as a family, we talk about, hey, we need to go and minister to people in town. Like, how can we go help with the food shelter? How can we help people that need clothes? Can we donate clothes to them? And we've talked about maybe setting up trips take our kids down to Mexico to build homes, right? Because I think they're very blessed, in the fact that we live in America, but they haven't seen anything where it's been, oh my gosh, like this person's poor and they're sleeping on dirt ground, dirt floors and things like that. So, we want to go and do missionary trips, and we want to be able to help out in the community. And so we've actually just this year really started to put together some ideas of like, how can we be more involved in ministering to people through that, food shelters or women's shelters or going on missions trips. And so we haven't stepped into that quite yet, but we've been putting together a good list of how can we make that happen so that our kids can really just be involved in loving on people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we like definitely walking with our kids in that and saying, hey, what is God asking you to do?
Mm-hmm.
My son has a really fun idea. He likes to play Minecraft.
Yeah.
And he wants to build things in Minecraft and tell Bible stories.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, and to film it and put it on YouTube or whatever so that people can watch him play Minecraft, because that's what kids like to do these days, you know? And at the same time, he's building a structure that, I don't know, maybe he builds the temple or something. I have no idea.
Sure.
And so, but trying to really say, hey guys, like God wants to use you too. What does that look like? What does it look like for us to do that? And how can we do that as a family? And so my wife is really good at that. Last, Halloween, we made cookies, and instead of having our kids go trick-or-treating, we just went to our little neighborhood and just gave all of our neighbors cookies and said, hey, we just want you to know we're thinking about you, and, wanted to bless you guys, back or whatever. These really little things that seemingly aren't a big deal,
Sure.
but it's opened up so many doors for us to have conversations with our neighbors that I don't think that we would have been able to have otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus said, love your neighbor. And a lot of times we think, oh, well, that's just everybody, which that's true.
Yes.
But you also have your physical neighbors, the people that live close to you, and you're living more with them than you really are with anybody else because you're in the same community. So
Yeah.
I think it's good to have that intentionality with how can we actually love our physical neighbors around us.
Huge. And I've not had good luck with neighbors throughout the years. Like they were just kind of a little on the crazier side, things like that.
Sure.
But where we're at today, we have some just amazing neighbors next to us that are also Christ followers, and it's been cool.
Yeah.
And they have two older boys that both play baseball, and one's getting just drafted by the Rangers, so it's just been cool. And they get to minister to us, and we get to have fellowship with them, and they came out to watch my son play last night, and it's just cool to grow in relationship with our physical neighbors as well.
Yeah. We were always been very intentional every time we moved somewhere to say, God, please give us a good neighbor.
Yeah, totally.
Like someone we can really connect with. Some of our best friends that we have, the first house that we bought together was our next door neighbors, and so they're still really, really good friends of ours and things like that. And it's cool.
Yeah.
Their boy was like 2, I think, and now he's like junior, senior, about to graduate high school, and which is just crazy.
Yeah.
So, but life goes fast.
Totally.
So bringing it back, just thinking about healthy rhythms, thinking about all of this intentionality. Ultimately, who would you say is responsible to make that happen?
Number one, Jesus. I wouldn't be here without Jesus. But I think if we go back to, there's a power of prayer. And my grandma, who will be 90 this year, I spent a lot of time with her growing up. And when my grandfather passed away in 1999, I went and lived with her for a bit. And my grandma loves the Lord. She's a miracle in herself. I mean, she was born in the 30s at 2.5 pounds. And they had to keep her in the oven to keep her warm. And her diapers were a men's handkerchief.
Crazy.
And then married my grandpa, who was 6'2", and my grandma's like 4'9", and gave birth to 6 kids, who now my grandma has 54, 55 grandkids, great-grandkids, and great-great-grandkids. And she has been praying for me since before I was born. And I've just had these amazing conversations with her about prayer. And I believe that I'm been protected, number one, because of Jesus, but number two, because of the prayers from my grandma has led me to be a Christ follower, to led my wife to me. And I truly believe that her prayers have been there. And my wife is also just a woman of prayer, and man, just hears from the Lord. And I don't ever I don't want to say ever, but I also feel like my wife is more connected sometimes, where she might hear things from God, and I'm like, okay, that's a confirmation of what I was maybe thinking. And Jesus, my grandma, and my wife are the 3 people that I think that have helped me become the person that I am today.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Erik, I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the Strong by Design podcast. If people want to connect with you, what would be a great way for them to be able to do that?
Yeah, just my website is erikallenmedia.com. It's ErikAllen media. And then I'm probably most active on Instagram. So it's just Erik G. Allen on there. And they can shoot me a DM, or I respond to every comment and every DM that comes my way. So if you have questions, definitely feel free to reach out. But man, it's such an honor to be on your show, dude. You have an amazing platform here. You're changing lives, dude. And I love that you just honor God in this, man. And so I just want to say thank you for having me on the show, man. It's an honor.
Absolutely. It's great. It's cool to have an opportunity to just share what God's doing. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful things we can do is just be able to say, hey, this is where we see God at work. And it's fun to have these conversations with people from Idaho, from California to South Carolina. And it's like God is just like dropping these little nuggets, and they're all identical, and it's happening everywhere, and it's just cool to hear. It's cool to hear your story and what God's doing with you, and it's like I resonate so much with it, with where we're at with my own family. So thank you so much for sharing and for coming on the show. As always, we release a new episode every single Wednesday. Please be sure to check us out as we release the next one next Wednesday. Sometimes you get a bonus Saturday episode, but leave us a comment. If this conversation was impactful for you, please go ahead and share it with somebody. We want to be able to continue to spread the goodness of what God is doing in and through people. So please share this with your friends, with your family, and we look forward to the next episode next week.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.